All right, Chrissy, thank you. The coronavirus outbreak is stranding thousands of people on cruise ships all across the globe.
Fox 5 legal analyst Wendy Patrick is here with a look at their legal options going forward. Wendy, good morning.
Good morning.
I mean, I guess it's not surprising this isn't even over yet, and a lot of these folks are probably already thinking ahead. Lawsuit, lawsuit, lawsuit. First of all, let's explain what's happening on these ships to these thousands of people.
That's right. So what's happening basically aboard these ships is, as you can imagine, a cruise ship involves very close quarters, very close contact. They're almost like floating cities. And because the coronavirus is mildly, moderately contagious, remember we went from severe and it's not mild, it's kind of in the middle, moderately, according to the medical experts. And because people can be asymptomatic, that's part of the scary thing about it, for a period of time when I guess they might be contagious is what we're now hearing. There are a lot of cases that are now being confirmed on cruise ships. So we're talking about two things. We're talking about isolation and quarantine. Isolation is if you know you're positive, you're supposed to basically self-isolate. Now, we all know that people don't do that, and that's one of the biggest problems.
Right.
But then quarantine is what we're seeing on some of these major cruise ships. The most severe, of course, being the Diamond Princess, which is still under quarantine, supposedly until February 19th. But passengers are worried that depending on how many people continue to test positive, that date could be pushed out. So that's a problem. It is something that the world is watching, and we've also seen temporary quarantines being enforced in other cruise ships, as you say, around the globe.
Can you legally do that?
You can. Countries do have the power, and we do it in the States as well, to prevent the spread of serious diseases. Now, what's a serious disease? That list, it changes, and it is different in different countries, but the kind of flu that could potentially cause a pandemic would always be on that list. And so that is one of the reasons that you do see these types of laws being enforced in different places around the world as medical professionals continue to explore how many people are infected aboard each of these ships.
When looking into lawsuits, you consider the country where the ship and that company is based out of and what country you're docked in. All that comes into play?
All of that and more comes into play when it comes to the kinds of lawsuits that might be possible. And along those lines, many passengers are also themselves looking into what type of financial remedies might be available to them if they're losing work, if they are losing out on other economical opportunities, because there's only so much you can do. I know they give you free internet, but not everybody can work from a cruise ship.
So the legal recourse here would be what? Because we talked, there was a couple. Each one runs a business, and they had timed this out, obviously, and they can't stay out of their business, and then that starts to suffer now that they're sitting on a cruise ship for 2 weeks. What then?
Yeah, you know, a lot of these are novel questions as we see these kinds of things really spread into, 2-week incubation period, and now what if they extend that 2 weeks? I can tell you that when some of those initial cases are resolved, many passengers are going to be watching closely, as are the cruise lines, because this type of thing has happened before, but not enough to there really be any solid precedent as to, well, this is definitely what's going to happen. Now, it also depends, by the way, in terms of what can travelers regain and redeem financially. How did you purchase the cruise? What kind of travel insurance do you have? All the kinds of questions that govern. Did your doctor advise you not to go, or did you consider canceling a trip because you were worried about getting sick?
Who can you sue? Like, I would imagine if you're on the ship, do you sue the cruise line? Do you sue a government? Like, who do you go? Because I'm sure everybody's pointing and they're trying to take precautions. It's all being done with the best intentions.
Yeah, that's right. And the cruise ship has to follow the rules as well. If they are under federal law quarantine, or they're under the country's law, they really don't have the kind of choices that we would expect, given that they have to do their part in making sure they follow the rules in preventing the spread of this disease.
Something like this on a cruise ship, is there anything in the fine print, because you always see the fine print, airline tickets, cruise ship tickets, whatever, where if something happens that's beyond their control, you get this a lot with like natural occurrences. They're not liable for it if it's out of their control, which is, for this virus, I think, different than the other ones that they've had problems with on cruise ships, where it's a cleanliness issue, right?
That's right.
This is out of their control. It's like this virus came out of nowhere.
Well, it's true, and it's also true that, the passengers are under quarantine, but the crew is not. The crew has to continue to deliver the meals to the rooms,
good point.
to escort them out. Remember the rules. They can come out of their rooms if they have an inside cabin every so many days for an hour. They have to stay 6 feet away from each other, wash hands up to 20 seconds. Remember, that's long enough to sing the happy birthday song. why don't we start taking those precautions here on the front end, especially now that we do have a couple of cases here reported. But, you know, our hearts and prayers are with those passengers, and we hope that there are no more cases and they finally get to disembark.
I know.
All right, Wendy, Patrick, thank you so much.
Thank you.